Do you like matcha? Or before that, do you know what matcha is? In this 10-minute video, I'm going to talk solely about matcha. Whenever you go to any cafe or convenience store these days, you would have seen something green way more than a year ago. I'm a big fan of matcha myself, as you can see that I have a whole lot of matcha flavored powders and cake. Korean food companies focused on this matcha for months in early 2026. There were matcha flavored chocolates and cookies, whole bunch of matcha drinks like yogurt smoothies, matcha latte, strawberry matcha, chocolate matcha, etc., and even matcha tteokbokki. And this trend wasn't only in Korea, and actually, this was quite a global trend. So to truly understand the vibrant green powder we see in cafe today, we must first look back at its thousand-year evolution, which began not in Japan, but in Tang Dynasty, China. Back then, tea wasn't a loose leaf drink. It was a medicinal substance compressed into hard bricks for easy transport. And by the time of the Song dynasty, people began roasting and pulverizing these bricks into a fine powder, creating the ancestor of what we now call matcha. However, while China eventually moved towards steeping whole tea leaves, Japan took this powdered method and turned it into a high art form. This transition happened in 1191 when the Japanese monk Eisai returned to China with tea seeds and a new philosophy, viewing tea as a tool for Zen meditation. Over the next several centuries, Japanese farmers perfected a unique cultivation method called shade growing. About 3 weeks before harvest, the tea bushes are covered to block out nearly 90% of sunlight. This stress forces the plant to produce massive amounts of chlorophyll and L-theanine, which gives matcha its electric green color and its famous calm alertness effect. The leaves are then carefully stone ground, a process so slow that it takes 1 hour just to produce 30 grams of powder, preserving the delicate flavor and nutrients that would otherwise be destroyed by heat. This incredible attention to detail triggered a massive historical matcha boom during the 16th century. During this era, matcha wasn't just a drink. It was a primary driver of the economy and a symbol of extreme political power. For the samurai and the ruling elite, matcha was the ultimate status symbol. It was so valuable that high-ranking warriors were often rewarded with precious tea bowls or jars of high-graded tea leaves instead of land or gold. This period of obsession turned matcha into a cultural powerhouse, but it also risked becoming a shallow display of wealth. This is where the legendary tea master Sen Noriku stepped in. He redirected the matcha boom away from luxury and toward a rustic, spiritual aesthetic called wabi-sabi. By doing so, he ensured that matcha would survive not just as a trend for the riches, but as a timeless spiritual practice. This leads us directly into the heart of matcha culture, the art of sado. Sado, or the way of tea, is often translated as a tea ceremony, but it's actually a lifelong spiritual discipline rooted in four core pillars: harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. In a traditional tea room, every single detail, from the scroll hanging on the wall to the way host cleans the tools, is a choreographed act of mindfulness. The most profound concept within Sado is Ichiko Ichi, which literally translates to one time, one meeting. This philosophy teaches us that every tea gathering is a unique, unrepeatable moment in time. Even if the same people meet in the same room again, the light will be different, the mood will be different, and the tea will be different. When you participate in Sado, you aren't just drinking tea. You're practicing the art of being fully present in now. Finally, to bring this ancient wisdom into our modern lives, we must master the physical act of preparation, specifically the technique of kyokbur. This is the vigorous whisking process that transforms the powder into a creamy, frothy masterpiece. To do this correctly, you must first sift the matcha through a fine mesh strainer. Skipping the step leads to clumps, which is considered a major error in tea preparation. Next is the water temperature, which is the most critical technical detail. You must never use boiling water as it scorches the delicate powder and creates an overpowering bitterness. The ideal temperature is approximately 80 degrees Celsius. Once the water is added, you use a bamboo whisk called a chason. Instead of stirring in a circle, you must use your wrist to move the whisk in a rapid zigzagging W or M motion. This process of kyokbur isn't just about mixing. It's about aerating the tea to create a layer of tiny, uniform bubbles known as the crema. This foam mellows the intensity of the tea and gives it a velvety, thick texture that coats to the palate. When you see that perfect, vibrant frost and the smell of deep, earthy aroma, you have successfully bridged the gap between 1,000 years of history and your own bowl, turning it a simple beverage into a moment of true, focused art. So, matcha was quite an expensive hobby, isn't it? But this matcha had been a global trend from late 2025 to early 2026. To understand why our social media feeds are currently saturated with various shades of forest green, we have to look at the fascinating phenomenon of how matcha evolved from an ancient ritual into a modern global obsession. For centuries, matcha was a hidden gem of Japanese culture, but its journey to the West truly accelerated during the wellness revolution of the 2010s. As people began seeking alternative to the jittery, high anxiety spikes of coffee, they discovered matcha's unique combination of caffeine and L-theanine. This provides a calm alertness that perfectly suited the high-pressure, productivity-focused culture of cities like New York and Los Angeles. However, it wasn't just the health benefit that fueled its spread. It was the visual power of tea itself. In the era dominated by Instagram and TikTok, matcha's vibrant electric green color became the ultimate aesthetic content. It wasn't long before we saw the rise of matcha core, a term that describes an entire lifestyle centered around the matcha aesthetics. Matcha core isn't just about drinking tea. It's about a specific vibe that includes sage green linen clothing, minimalist ceramic balls, mossy interior design, and an overall focus on clean living and mindfulness. It represents a desire to slow down and find beauty in the process, turning a simple beverage into a fashion statement and personality trait. This digital obsession gave birth to another viral wave known as the spilling matcha trend. While spilling the tea has long been slang for sharing gossip, spilling matcha evolved something into more curated and aesthetic. On social media, creators use the act of whisking and pouring matcha as a background of sharing insider wellness tips, life advice, or the truth about their balanced lifestyle. It's a trend that pairs the soothing ASMR sounds of the bamboo whisk against the ball with vulnerable or deep conversations. This combination of high visual appeal and emotional intimacy is exactly why matcha succeeded where other superfoods failed. It moved from the monastery to the mainstream because it offers something rare in the digital age, a richer ritual that looked as good as it feels. So, how did this traditional drink manage to conquer the world so completely? It was the perfect storm of timing, biology, and technology. The world was stressed and looking for a healthier fuel. The tea itself was inherently photogenic, and the ancient Japanese philosophy of our mindfulness provided a needed antidote to our fast paced lives. Today, when we see someone posting their matcha morning routine, they aren't just showing us a drink, they're signaling their participation in a global community that values health, aesthetic, and the quiet art of ritual. Matcha's global spread is a testament to how an 800-year-old tradition can be reinvented for the smartphone generation, providing that some things, like the search for balance and beauty, are truly universal.